It's my daughter's birthday and she designed her own cake. This year she's super into Harry Potter, so she requested a Harry Potter birthday party. For her cake, this is the sketch that she came up with. She wants a 3-tier cake, the bottom one to look like a luggage or trunk, the middle one to look like Diagon Alley, no big deal, right? And the top tier to be a Hufflepuff uniform because she belongs in House Hufflepuff. So I started out with the bottom tier. I made a quarter sheet cake and then covered in brown fondant. The flavors she wanted for this tier were almond funfetti cake with cream cheese filling. Once that fondant was nice and smooth, I grabbed this flat tool and gently press it into the sides of the cake to create this line going all the way around. I used my leftover brown fondant and added some white fondant to make this lighter brown color. Then I rolled out 4 equal pieces and placed them on top of the cake. I used an X-Acto knife to make a mark along the sides of that light brown fondant. Then I cut out 8 of these longer rectangle fondant pieces. I used a small round piping tip to add the little circle details, and then I painted them gold using luster dust and a little bit of vodka. I add them to both sides of the luggage, and then I finish making the rest of the gold details like the locks and latches. Once I finish with the front, I move on to the sides. I freehanded these handles using an X-Acto knife, and then I placed one on each side. Then I added some more gold details over those handles. Since I will be adding another tier, I have to get rid of some of that fondant that's sitting up top. I measured the size of the middle tier and then cut everything at the center. I rolled out some yellow fondant and carefully cut out her name, then placed it in front of the cake. I'm not gonna lie, I was already obsessed with how her cake was looking, and I'm barely working on the first tier. Her sketch included all kinds of stickers on the luggage, so we both chose the images and then I printed them on edible sugar sheets. I included this Honeydukes logo, and she really wanted that Hogwarts logo up front. I added a Bertie Bott's label, followed by a sticker for each of the Hogwarts houses. And last, I add this platform 9 3/4 sticker to the side. Now that my bottom tier's finished, it's time to work on the next one. I started out with this gray colored buttercream base, and to create a brick wall effect, I used this brick impression mat. I poured some white food coloring and brushed it all over the mat. Then I just carefully pressed it into the cake. This is the first time I've tried this technique, so I had no idea what to expect. It wasn't leaving as much food coloring as I wanted it to, so I used this fondant smoothing tool to leave even pressure as I pressed it into the cake. And finally, it seemed to work really well. I definitely wanted this old and distressed look. Now that the base of this cake is finished, it's time to stack on top of that bottom tier. I place my supports and carefully add that second tier. I was honestly dreading to make this one a little bit because it seemed so hard. I had no clue how I was going to decorate this one. And of course, it turned out to be my favorite part of the cake. I honestly had so much fun making this. I started off by sculpting these 2 little light posts that I placed in front of the cake. Then I cut out this teal colored door that I added right at the center. I placed these little steps right in front of the door. And of course, to match the color of the door, I had to add a Honeydukes sign above it. Then I created this storefront window, which was honestly my favorite detail. I added some fondant ruffle above the window to create this sort of canopy. For the windows and doors, I did add an edible image that looks like a storefront, and I placed it behind the panels. Then I placed the other doors. I tried to make them all a little bit different using different colors, shapes, and sizes. I made another storefront window because I loved the first one so much. I added some steps in front of that door, and then I add my third and final door, which I made pink, and a matching pink window right next to it. I printed some really cute signs, and I added this one right next to that front light post. Then I added the rest of the signs all around the cake. I really like this one that says Diagon Alley. Now that the middle tier is done, it's time to move on to the third and final tier. For the Hufflepuff uniform, I started out with a white buttercream base. And I can't believe I almost forgot to add these. I sculpted these cute little mandrake plants that I added to the bottom of that middle tier. Also, the flavors she chose for her middle tier, it was vanilla cake with Oreo buttercream filling. Back to the top tier, I made some gray fondant and cut out this thick V shape. I placed it right at the center, and then I made this black and yellow striped tie. I placed it over the gray fondant, and then I made this white collar that I added right on top. I made this black and yellow trim for that gray sweater vest. Oh, and the flavor she chose for this tier was simply tres leches with no filling. And finally, I add some black fondant to look like the robe over the uniform. I add a yellow trim to the outer part of that vest, and then the black fondant on top. I'm so excited. Now her cake is all done. Here's how I turned her sketch of her dream cake into a real cake. I'm so obsessed. I don't say this too often. I think this is one of my new favorite cakes. Here's what it looks like in my light box and a few close-ups. Guys, I don't know what got into me, but I decided to make 4 smaller cakes on the side. These are 6-inch cakes, and I made them all the same flavor. They're almond cake with Oreo buttercream filling. frosted them in red, yellow, green, and blue to represent each of the 4 Hogwarts houses. I figured I had a lot of people coming to my daughter's birthday party, including some family from out of town, and everybody always wants to take extra cake home, so I figured this would be a great way to pass out an entire small cake. I can't wait to show you guys the rest of my daughter's party decorations and how I made everything, but I hope you guys like this one.